He's the kind of black man that makes racists uncomfortable, rich, calm, educated, and unapologetically brilliant. That was the tweet that went viral just hours after the announcement hit every major news blog. Malcolm Hayes, tech mogul, real estate tycoon, and former Wall Street strategist, was scheduled to appear on The Travis Cole Show, a nationally syndicated talk show known more for its hosts' smug smirks than meaningful dialogue. For a man who built an empire from scratch, Malcolm had kept a relatively low profile. He preferred boardrooms to ballrooms, meetings to media. But something about this invitation made him say yes. It wasn't just any invite. It was a setup, and he knew it. "Are you sure about this?" asked Jade, his assistant, as they sat in his glass-walled office overlooking downtown Atlanta. Malcolm didn't look up from his tablet. "Sure about what?" "Going on Travis Cole's show. That man's made a career out of baiting people like you. He calls it just asking questions, but we both know what that means." Malcolm finally looked up, adjusting his tailored navy blazer. "Sometimes you walk into the lion's den, not to fight the lion, but to let the world see what happens when the lion finally meets a mirror." Jade raised a brow. "That's deep. But Travis doesn't want a conversation, he wants a clip to go viral." "And I'll give him one," Malcolm said, standing up with a slight grin. "Just not the one he expects." The internet buzzed like a beehive on fire. Travis versus Malcolm. "Oh, this is gonna be spicy. Malcolm Hayes is too classy for that circus. Hope he doesn't waste his time. Travis better come correct. Hayes isn't some clout chaser." Malcolm's name trended for 2 days. News outlets speculated about why he suddenly agreed to a mainstream interview. Some guessed it was to announce a new political move. Others whispered he might be gearing up for a foundation or educational initiative. None of them were right. For Malcolm, it wasn't about business or politics, it was personal. Deeply personal. His phone buzzed. It was a message from his mother. "Saw the news. Make us proud. But don't let them rattle you. You come from fighters." Malcolm smiled. She never used emojis. But this time there was a single one, a flame. He glanced out the window, the city lights twinkling like stars trapped in concrete. Somewhere in that city, a young black boy was probably being told to tone it down, to fit in, to not scare them. And Malcolm was tired. Tired of excellence being viewed as an anomaly. Tired of respect having to be earned twice as hard and given half as often. This wasn't just an interview. It was a statement. A moment. And whether Travis Cole knew it or not, he had just scheduled the most important and most humbling broadcast of his entire career. The lion wasn't walking into the studio to roar. He was walking in to roar back. The stage lights flared like camera flashes. The crowd applauded on cue. Studio air, icy and tense, buzzed with anticipation. This wasn't just another segment on the Travis Cole Show, this was the showdown. Travis Cole adjusted his tie, flashed his trademark smirk, and leaned into the camera. "Our next guest is a self-made billionaire. A real American success story. From humble beginnings to Forbes covers, please welcome Malcolm Hayes." Applause thundered. Malcolm walked in calm, composed, his stride as smooth as the silk pocket square on his blazer. No flashy jewelry. No designer label bragging. Just presence. Commanding. Measured. Dangerous, at least to men like Travis. They shook hands firm but not fake. Travis gestured to the chair. "Malcolm, welcome to the show." "Thank you for having me," Malcolm replied, voice cool like midnight jazz. Travis jumped in fast. "I've been following your career. Very impressive. Born to a single mom, rough neighborhood, no silver spoon, and yet here you are. That's the American dream, right?" Malcolm nodded slightly. "It's an American dream. Not everyone gets the same script." Travis laughed, the kind of laugh that people use to cover discomfort. "Well, you certainly made it work. You've done well despite everything." There it was. Malcolm tilted his head, eyes narrowing just slightly. "Despite?" Travis grinned. "Oh, you know what I mean. Statistically, you were never supposed to succeed. Inner city, public school, father not in the picture. Yet here you are." "I succeeded," Malcolm said smoothly, "because I had a community that refused to let me fail. And a mother who worked 3 jobs while raising a black son in a system built to break us." A few quiet nods from the audience. Travis adjusted in his seat. "Well, I just think stories like yours prove that the system works. That anyone, regardless of color, can rise if they work hard enough." Malcolm leaned in. "That's a comforting story for people who never had to fight gravity. But it's not the full picture." Travis chuckled awkwardly. "Let's not make this political." "It's not political," Malcolm said, voice steady. "It's reality." For a moment, silence settled in the studio. Even the cameras seemed to still. Trying to regain control, Travis switched lanes. Let's talk about your businesses. You've got investments across multiple states. Impressive portfolio. But I have to ask, do you think you've ever been helped by, say, diversity programs? Affirmative action? There was a flicker in Malcolm's eyes. The audience picked up on it. The tension sharpened. Are you asking if my success is because of handouts? No, Travis said quickly. Just wondering if those programs gave you a leg up. Malcolm smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was razor sharp. I've built my companies from the ground up. No loans from rich uncles. No boardroom handshakes from Ivy League connections. Just grit, skill, and sleepless nights. Audience members started murmuring, some nodding. Phones came out, this was already becoming content. And Malcolm added, if you think equity is a handout, maybe you've never seen what happens when the playing field actually gets leveled. Travis laughed nervously. Well, this is going to be an interesting hour. Malcolm didn't blink. It already is. And just like that, the match had begun. 10 minutes in, and Travis Cole was sweating beneath studio lights that no longer felt so friendly. Malcolm Hayes hadn't raised his voice once, but every word hit like a chess move with checkmate in mind. Travis forced a grin. Let's pivot a bit, Malcolm. You're a businessman, not an activist, right? Malcolm adjusted his cufflink. I'm both. Being black in America makes you aware whether you like it or not. Fair enough, Travis replied. But do you ever think that sometimes the talk about racism is maybe a bit exaggerated? I mean, look at you. You're proof things are better. There it was again. Malcolm inhaled slowly. I'm proof of what's possible, not what's common. Travis chuckled, but his voice trembled slightly. But don't you think focusing on race just keeps the country divided? Malcolm paused. Not from hesitation, but precision. I think ignoring it keeps us dishonest. The audience murmured. A few clapped. Travis's face twitched. Well, let's be honest then, Travis said, sitting up straighter. What about crime in black communities? Fatherlessness? Black on black violence? Can we talk about that, or is that off limits? Now the room changed. The tension was no longer subtle. It thickened like fog. Some audience members exchanged looks. One cameraman visibly flinched. Malcolm didn't flinch. You want to talk about crime? Malcolm said, his tone colder now. Let's talk about underfunded schools, redlining, food deserts, police harassment, lack of job access, and mass incarceration. Let's talk about the systems that manufacture the conditions you love to blame. Those are excuses, Travis replied quickly. They're reasons, Malcolm snapped back, sharper than before. There's a difference. But people like you never want to admit the cause. You just point at the fire and pretend it wasn't lit by generations of gasoline. Audience, oh. Someone clapped once, then twice. A ripple followed. Travis leaned forward, speaking quickly. But you made it out. Doesn't that prove the system works if you try hard enough? I didn't make it out, Malcolm said. I made it through. There's a difference. The words hung in the air. Travis, now visibly irritated, threw a final jab. So what, you think every black kid in America is being hunted? Malcolm's eyes narrowed. No. But they're being watched, followed, judged, and written off before they even get a chance to speak. Not hunted, boxed in. Travis went silent for a beat too long. Then, in a last-ditch effort to regain control, he said, I just think we've moved past all that. Racism isn't what it used to be. Malcolm leaned in, voice like steel. No. Now it wears suits, holds microphones, and calls itself real talk. Gasps. Murmurs. Phones recording. The internet was about to explode. Travis blinked. The smirk was gone. He had poked the lion, and the lion had started to roar. Travis cleared his throat. Well, Malcolm, I think we've both made our points. Let's not turn this into a... Turn it into what? Malcolm interrupted, leaning slightly forward in his seat, his voice low, calm, and suddenly deadly quiet. An actual conversation? You invited me here, Travis. You wanted this. So let's not flinch now that the mirror's turned around. The studio went dead silent. Travis tried to regroup. I just think people are tired of hearing about oppression. It's like, if you keep focusing on the past, how do you ever move forward? Malcolm tilted his head. You don't build a better future by pretending the past never happened. You build it by telling the truth about it and changing the parts that are still broken. Travis chuckled nervously. But you're doing well. Doesn't that mean racism isn't stopping people anymore? There was a pause. Malcolm sat back, eyes never leaving Travis. You know what's wild, Travis? That no matter how far we come, people like you will always point to the one black man who made it and say, see? The rest of you just aren't trying hard enough. You never ask how many others were just as smart, just as driven, just as gifted, but never got past the door because of what they looked like. The audience was locked in. Not a single cough, not a whisper. Everyone stared. Malcolm continued, voice firm but still measured. Let me tell you a story. My father worked at a steel plant for 20 years. Showed up early. Never missed a shift. He trained 3 different white men who got promoted ahead of him. Know what the manager told him? Travis didn't answer. Malcolm didn't wait. You're good, but you don't quite fit the image we're looking for. That was code. And you know it. A few people in the audience gasped. My mom, Malcolm went on, got followed in stores more times than she could count. One time I watched a clerk call security on her for carrying her own purse. Travis looked down. The crowd leaned closer. And me. Malcolm added, his tone heavier now. I've walked into boardrooms where they thought I was the intern. I've had investors tell me I was surprisingly articulate. I've had people ask if I was the face of the company because surely I couldn't be the mind behind it. He paused, let the silence speak. Then he dropped the hammer. You don't see the fire, Travis, because you've never been burned. But those of us with scars, we smell the smoke the moment we walk into the room. The room exploded. Audience members clapped. Some stood. A woman in the back shouted, say that again. Travis sat frozen. Pale. Speechless. Malcolm adjusted his jacket. Calm. Composed. You didn't invite me here to talk, he said quietly. You invited me here to behave. More claps. More cheers. But I don't exist to make you comfortable, Travis. I exist to make change. And in that moment, the roles reversed. The host had become the student. The guest had taken the show. And the whole world was watching. By the time the interview hit its last commercial break, the internet had already gone into meltdown. Clips of Malcolm's verbal takedown flooded TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram within minutes. The phrase, you don't see the fire because you've never been burned, became an instant meme, printed in bold over slow-mo shots of Malcolm leaning into the mic with surgical calm. Hashtag Malcolm Hayes, hashtag verbal KO, hashtag Travis exposed, all trending in real time. Reaction videos exploded across platforms. I need Malcolm to teach a masterclass in how to annihilate someone without raising your voice. Yo, Travis just got baptized in facts. Malcolm Hayes didn't do an interview. He dropped a TED Talk at gunpoint. Meanwhile, the show's official page tried to do damage control. At Travis Cole Show, great convo tonight with Malcolm Hayes. Important to hear all perspectives. Let's keep the dialogue going. But the comments weren't having it. Nah, you got cooked. Sit this one out. You invited a lion and got surprised when he roared. You wanted to own the libs and ended up getting owned by literacy. Backstage, Malcolm scrolled through the reactions on his phone, his expression unreadable. Jade walked in, phone still pressed to her ear. NBC, CNN, and The Breakfast Club are all asking for interviews. And get this, Harvard wants you to speak at their fall symposium. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't they reject my scholarship application back in the day? Jade grinned. Yup. Now they're begging. Malcolm chuckled, sliding the phone into his coat pocket. Funny how that works. Travis, meanwhile, sat alone in his dressing room, staring at the monitor replaying the segment. His face looked different now, no more smugness, no more control. Just the expression of a man who realized he invited someone into his house and got outclassed in every room. One of the producers knocked and entered cautiously. We, have some feedback from sponsors. Negative? Mixed, she said hesitantly. Some are pissed. But others are saying this is the most engaged the show has ever been. Travis said nothing. Just stared at his own face on the screen, frozen in the moment where Malcolm turned the entire power dynamic upside down. Meanwhile, clips of the exchange reached newsrooms and podcasts alike. A CNN anchor said this was more than just TV. Malcolm Hayes put words to a lived reality many Americans don't want to face. A young YouTuber with 1.2 million subscribers titled her video "Why This Interview Changed Everything for Black Professionals." And back in Atlanta, Malcolm's mother sat quietly in her living room, tears brimming in her eyes as she watched her son stand tall without ever raising his voice. He didn't just speak for himself, she whispered. He spoke for all of us. The world had watched, listened, and for once heard. Malcolm hadn't come for applause. He came for truth. And somehow that made the mic drop even louder. The next morning, Malcolm's face was everywhere, from primetime news to reaction thumbnails with titles like "The Moment Truth Punched Privilege in the Face." But with fame came fire. The backlash was quick and vicious. Conservative outlets went on the offensive. Entitled "Billionaire Attacks White Host on National TV." Malcolm Hayes promotes division, not progress. This is what woke arrogance looks like. One commentator on a right-wing network snarled, "He's ungrateful. This country gave him everything and he spits in its face on live TV?" Typical. Malcolm didn't flinch. He logged into Twitter, dropped one post, and logged out. Telling the truth isn't attacking. It's unmasking. If the system feels targeted, maybe it's guilty. That tweet alone crossed 1 million likes in hours. But then came the smear attempts. Digging through his past. Spinning narratives. Old tweets taken out of context. A business rival even tried leaking a lawsuit that had already been dismissed years ago. Jade burst into his office. "You're gonna see some mess in the headlines today. Just know we're already on top of it." Malcolm leaned back in his chair. "They're scrambling. They expected me to show up, smile, nod, and leave. Instead, I talked back." Jade folded her arms. "And now they're scared. Because you did it with a suit on and your receipts in your back pocket." Still, the threats came. Emails, DMs, even a brick thrown through the window of one of his real estate offices. "Back off, Hayes. We know where you live," one note read. He took a picture of the brick. Posted it. Caption, "You're confirming everything I said. Keep digging." That post? Viral. But Malcolm wasn't just sitting back. He started doing interviews on his terms. No friendly edits. No scripts. Just truth. On the Breakfast Club, he said it's not about being anti-anyone. It's about being pro-accountability. Racism didn't disappear, it evolved. It learned how to wear a tie, sit on a panel, and say things like divisive every time a black man speaks with clarity. On a podcast hosted by a young black entrepreneur, he added, "They don't fear the loud ones anymore. They fear the calm ones. The ones with spreadsheets and stats. The ones they can't caricature or dismiss." And the people? They rallied. Marches sparked in cities across the country. Not riots, rallies. Organized, peaceful, powerful. Signs read, "We smell the smoke. Comfort is not more important than truth." Malcolm wasn't angry, he was right. Travis Cole's show, meanwhile, started hemorrhaging viewers. Sponsors began pulling ads. The very episode meant to challenge Malcolm's credibility had turned into the biggest PR failure of the year. And Malcolm? He smiled quietly from his office window as the sun set. They tried to paint him as dangerous. But all he had done was speak clearly. 3 weeks after the interview, Malcolm stood before a sold-out audience at Howard University. The same man who once walked these halls with worn-out sneakers and a borrowed textbook now stood on a grand stage in a tailored black suit. Cameras flashed. Applause thundered. The crowd wasn't just students, it was teachers, parents, business leaders, even celebrities. Everyone wanted to hear the man who shook a nation simply by refusing to shrink. Malcolm approached the mic. "I didn't set out to become a viral moment," he began, voice calm, commanding. "I just wanted to tell the truth. And if telling the truth makes people uncomfortable, then maybe comfort was the problem all along." Cheers erupted. But he raised a hand gently, quieting the room. "You see, they thought if they made enough noise, they could drown me out. They didn't expect all of you to get louder. Not with anger. With awareness. With unity. With purpose." He paced slowly across the stage. "We're at a point in history where silence isn't neutral, it's an accessory to injustice. And speaking up isn't radical, it's responsible. So speak. In the boardroom. In the classroom. In the voting booth. Speak until silence becomes impossible." Another wave of applause rolled through the hall. Meanwhile, back at the Travis Cole network, change was brewing. Ratings had tanked. Major advertisers jumped ship. And whispers floated that Travis himself was considering a temporary leave to recalibrate. But Malcolm wasn't focused on that anymore. He wasn't concerned with revenge, he was building something bigger. He launched a new initiative, Truth and Power, a media and mentorship platform dedicated to elevating young black voices in business, journalism, tech, and leadership. It exploded almost overnight. Schools began integrating his interview into curriculum. Colleges hosted panels on how one moment of truth on live TV challenged the culture of soft racism and media manipulation. And most importantly, people listened. They listened in barbershops, around dinner tables, on bus rides and night shifts. They listened not just to his words but to the message behind them. "We're not asking for power, we're stepping into it." At the end of his Howard speech, Malcolm looked out over the sea of young faces staring back at him. Hopeful. Determined. He smiled. "I didn't go on that show to win an argument. I went to show that we belong in every room. Not just sitting politely but standing firmly. Speaking boldly. And walking out with our heads higher than we came in." He raised his fist lightly in the air. The room rose with him. "Now it's your turn. Drop a comment, eh?" Did Malcolm say what needed to be said? Have you ever faced subtle racism and had to choose between speaking up or staying silent? Let's talk about it below. And if this story hit home for you, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that challenge the norm and give voice to the truth. Your voice matters. Let's use it together.